My dear friends, life has a way of surprising us, not always with gifts wrapped in ribbons, but sometimes with challenges wrapped in thorns. And when those thorns prick us, when people hurt us, when circumstances break us, and when life brings storms we never asked for, healing becomes not just a choice, it becomes a necessity. We spend so much of our time trying to control the world outside, people, situations, opinions, outcomes, as if the key to peace is held by someone else. And yet, the simple secret that can help you heal is this: turn inward. Because healing does not start from what happens around you. It starts from what happens within you. Think of a glass of muddy water. If you shake it, it stays muddy. But if you simply let it sit, the dirt settles by itself. In the same way, the mind doesn't always need force. It needs stillness. It needs space. It needs the gentle permission to feel, to pause, to release, and to breathe again. When you stop fighting your emotions and start listening to them, healing begins. When you stop rushing and start resting, clarity arrives. When you stop blaming and start understanding, forgiveness becomes possible. And when you stop searching for peace outside and start cultivating it inside, you realize that healing is not something you chase. It is something you allow. The simple secret is this: be present with yourself, not with judgment, not with fear, but with compassion. Because you deserve the same kindness that you give to everyone else. You deserve the same care that you offer so generously. And you deserve the same love that you keep waiting for from others. Healing is not a straight road. It is a dance between breaking and blooming, falling and rising, hurting and learning. Be patient with yourself. You are not behind. You are not weak. You are simply human, beautifully, wonderfully, imperfectly human. And every time you choose to pause, breathe, reflect, forgive, let go, or begin again, you heal a little more. And piece by piece, day by day, moment by moment, the light returns. Remember, my friend's life will not always be perfect, but you can still be peaceful. And that peace, your inner peace, is the greatest healer of all. Healing begins within, not from external circumstances or people. This is one of the simplest truths, yet one of the hardest to practice. We often spend so much energy waiting for something outside us to change, hoping that someone will apologize, circumstances will improve, problems will disappear, or life will finally align with our expectations. We think that once these external factors shift, we will feel better. But life doesn't always adjust itself according to our emotional needs. People don't always behave the way we want. Circumstances don't always unfold in our favor. And when we depend on the world outside to fix the world inside, we hand over our peace to something we can't control. The reality is that healing begins the moment we recognize our inner world as the foundation of our peace. When we start paying attention to what is happening inside us, our thoughts, beliefs, wounds, fears, and patterns, we start taking back the responsibility for our emotional well-being. It is not about blaming ourselves for what went wrong. It is about empowering ourselves to choose what happens next. Healing does not mean that external situations become perfect. It means we learn how to hold ourselves gently even when life is not perfect. Think of the human heart like a garden. If we wait for perfect weather before planting seeds, we will never grow anything. Rain will come, storms will come, heat will come, and cold will come. But the gardener knows that growth happens when we nurture what's inside the fence, not when we attempt to control the sky. In the same way, our emotional landscape depends on how we care for our inner garden. The storms of life may shake us, but they cannot control the roots we choose to strengthen. Inner healing begins the moment we turn inward, sit with our feelings, and acknowledge their presence. Many people try to escape their emotions, thinking that avoidance is protection. But emotions are not enemies, they are messengers. When we feel hurt, the message is not that the world is cruel. The message is that something inside us needs attention. When we feel angry, it is not a sign that life is unfair. It is a signal that a boundary has been crossed or a truth has been ignored. When we feel sadness, it does not reflect weakness, it reflects depth, care, and attachment. And when we stop running from these emotions and instead welcome them with understanding, healing begins quietly, gently, and powerfully. The world outside may continue to be messy. People may not apologize. Circumstances may not change immediately. But when we begin to shift our relationship with ourselves, our reactions, our thoughts, our interpretations, everything inside us starts rearranging. Slowly we discover a strength we didn't know we had. We learn that peace is not the absence of problems, but the presence of inner alignment. We learn that healing is not about fixing the world, but about expanding our capacity to live in it without losing ourselves. Even when someone hurts us deeply, the healing process does not depend on their remorse. It depends on our willingness to release the hold that pain has over our mind. Even when life disappoints us, healing does not come from perfect outcomes. It comes from embracing the truth that our inner stability does not have to collapse with every external shake. And even when we feel broken, healing begins the moment we turn inward and say, I am ready to understand myself. Because within us lies the power to repair, restore, and rise, no matter what the world outside chooses to do. Stillness and introspection allow emotional clarity to emerge naturally. Yet in today's world, stillness feels almost unnatural. We are constantly surrounded by noise. Noise from people, noise from responsibilities, noise from our own thoughts. Most of us are not afraid of the world outside. We are afraid of the silence within. Because silence reveals what we have been avoiding. And stillness forces us to meet parts of ourselves we keep trying to outrun. But that very silence, that very stillness we fear, is the place where healing begins to take shape. Imagine a lake that has been disturbed by stones thrown into it. The ripples keep spreading, making the water unclear. If we want to see a reflection, we cannot keep agitating the surface. We simply stop and wait. The water gradually becomes calm and clarity emerges on its own. The mind works exactly the same way. When we constantly react, worry, analyze, and try to control, our thoughts become turbulent. We cannot see situations clearly. We cannot understand ourselves deeply. And we cannot make peaceful decisions. But when we allow the mind to settle, when we pause and breathe, clarity comes not through effort, but through natural alignment. Stillness is not laziness, and introspection is not overthinking. Overthinking is when we force the mind to run in circles. Introspection is when we allow the mind to observe without judgment. Stillness is not the absence of activity, it is the presence of awareness. When we sit quietly, even for a few minutes, we create space inside ourselves. And in that space, suppressed emotions surface, unprocessed memories rise, hidden fears reveal themselves, and truths that were buried under years of noise begin to whisper. These whispers are not there to scare us. They are there to guide us. Healing cannot happen in a rushed mind. A chaotic mind cannot process emotions. It can only react to them. But a calm mind begins to understand why we feel what we feel. It begins to separate real wounds from imagined fears, current pain from old memories. Stillness shows us what belongs to the present and what is just the echo of the past. Without pausing, we keep carrying old hurt into new moments, old disappointments into new opportunities, and old fears into new relationships. But when we sit with ourselves in silence, we start to untangle the emotional knots we've been tightly holding for years. Introspection also teaches us honesty. Sometimes the healing we need does not come from blaming others for what happened, but from understanding our own patterns, why we allow certain behavior, why we ignore certain red flags, why we silence our own needs, or why we expect from others what we are not giving ourselves. This self-understanding is not about guilt, it's about freedom. When we understand the root of our emotions, we stop reacting blindly and start responding wisely. Stillness gives us emotional distance. Things that felt overwhelming become manageable. Thoughts that felt heavy begin to lighten. Situations that looked complicated start making sense. This clarity helps us make better choices. Choices that align with our peace instead of our pressure. Choices that protect our heart instead of repeating old cycles. Choices that heal rather than hurt. With every moment of stillness, we reclaim a little more of ourselves. We learn that the answers we seek are not always out in the world. They are quietly waiting inside us, underneath layers of noise. And when we give ourselves the gift of silence, we allow these answers to rise. In that rising, clarity appears, and in that clarity, healing begins to unfold in the most natural, gentle way. Accepting emotions without judgment opens the door to true healing. Yet this is one of the most challenging practices of the human experience. Most of us have been trained by society, by upbringing, by past experiences to hide, suppress, or deny what we feel. From childhood, we hear phrases like, "Don't cry," "Don't be angry," or "Be strong," move on, or forget it. These instructions may sound practical, but they often teach us to run away from our inner truth. The more we avoid our emotions, the more they accumulate inside, silently waiting for attention. Healing begins the moment we stop telling our emotions to go away and instead say, I am listening. Emotions are not problems, they are signals. They are the language of the heart. When we feel pain, it is not meant to weaken us. It is trying to show us where something inside has been hurt. When we feel fear, it is not to paralyze us. It is trying to warn us of a threat or a memory that still holds power. When we feel sadness, it is not to drown us. It is trying to help us release what we have held too tightly for too long. But most of us become uncomfortable with these signals because they disrupt our rhythm, our image, our expectation of how we're supposed to feel. The truth is, emotions are neither good nor bad. They simply are. The moment we label them, we start resisting them. Resistance creates tension. Tension creates more pain. And pain multiplies when it is ignored. Acceptance, however, dissolves this cycle. Acceptance does not mean we enjoy the emotion. It means we allow it to be present without punishing ourselves for feeling it. Think of emotion as a visitor knocking on your door. If you ignore the knock, it becomes louder. If you push it away, it pushes back. But if you open the door, acknowledge the visitor, and allow it to sit for a while, it eventually leaves peacefully. When we accept emotions without judgment, we build a relationship with ourselves based on honesty. Many people say, I don't know why I feel this way. Not because the reason is unclear, but because they have never allowed themselves the space to explore. When we sit with our feelings calmly, without panic, we begin to notice patterns. We see how a comment triggers an old wound, how a disappointment reopens a forgotten scar, how a fear echoes a past experience. These insights cannot be gained when we suppress emotions. They only surface when we allow ourselves to be human. Judgment is the enemy of healing. The moment we tell ourselves, I shouldn't feel like this, we shut down the healing process. Emotions are not moral failures, they are natural responses. Telling a hurting heart not to hurt is like telling a bleeding wound not to bleed. Healing begins with acknowledgement. When we say, yes, I am hurt, or yes, I am scared, or yes, I am confused, we soften the inner resistance. Softness makes healing possible. Emotional acceptance also builds resilience. When we allow ourselves to feel fully, we learn that emotions are temporary. They rise, peak, and fade. They are waves, not permanent storms. The more we witness this cycle, the less afraid we become of difficult emotions. Instead of running from pain, we learn to endure it. Instead of escaping discomfort, we learn to understand it. And with understanding comes strength. By embracing our emotions without judgment, we treat ourselves with compassion rather than criticism. We learn to be a friend to our inner world, not a strict controller. And when the heart feels accepted rather than rejected, it begins to relax open, and heal, not through force, but through gentle, honest presence. Inner peace develops when we stop resisting and start understanding ourselves. But most of us spend our lives doing the opposite. We resist change, resist emotions, resist truth, and resist the very experiences that are meant to shape us. Resistance feels like control at first, but in reality, it creates inner conflict. The more we resist what life brings, the heavier our mind becomes. The moment we shift from resistance to understanding, something softens inside us. Peace begins not when life becomes easy, but when we stop fighting our inner world and start befriending it. Many times, we look at painful situations and immediately decide, this should not have happened. But the situation has already happened. By resisting it, we allow it to hurt us twice, once through the event and once through our refusal to accept it. Understanding does not mean agreeing with what hurt us. It means seeing the experience clearly, without unnecessary emotional struggle. When we begin to understand our own reactions, our patterns, our triggers, and our fears, the things that once caused chaos begin to lose their grip over us. In the understanding ourselves is an act of courage. It means observing why something affects us so deeply. It means asking why a certain word, action, or event has the power to disturb our peace. Often, the pain we feel in the present is amplified by wounds from the past. But instead of exploring these connections, we resist them. We distract ourselves, suppress emotions, pretend to be fine, or try to force our minds into silence. Yet the mind cannot be bullied into peace. It can only be guided gently toward understanding. When we stop resisting, we allow ourselves to feel with honesty. We acknowledge what is happening inside us without trying to control it. This simple shift opens the door to inner peace. Peace does not come from forcing the mind to be positive. Peace comes from allowing the mind to speak its truth. When we say to ourselves, I understand why I feel this way, we create harmony within. That harmony slowly replaces chaos. Understanding also teaches us compassion. We begin to see that our reactions are not signs of weakness. They are reflections of our journey. Our fears have roots. Our insecurities have stories. Our sadness has reasons. Instead of judging ourselves for feeling overwhelmed, we begin to comfort ourselves. Compassion naturally quiets the noise of self-criticism, and where criticism fades, peace enters. Resistance drains energy, understanding restores it. When we resist life, we fight reality. We argue with the present moment, hoping it will change. But reality is unmoved by our resistance. What actually changes is the tension within us. This inner tension creates stress, anxiety, and emotional exhaustion. Understanding, however, shifts our relationship with reality. When we see what is instead of what we think should be, our mind relaxes. Relaxation is the soil where peace grows. When we understand ourselves deeply, we stop personalizing everything. Not every disappointment is a failure. Not every rejection is a reflection of our worth. Not every delay is a punishment. Life is not always attacking us. Sometimes it is redirecting us. When we stop resisting these redirections and start understanding their purpose, we begin to live with grace instead of frustration. Ultimately, inner peace is not found by controlling life. It is found by understanding ourselves so deeply that life no longer controls our inner state. And when understanding replaces resistance, our inner world begins to settle, soften, and heal, creating a peace that no external circumstance can shake. Forgiveness becomes easier when we shift from blame to awareness, but for most of us, forgiveness feels like one of the hardest things to practice. We carry the weight of hurt for years, sometimes silently, sometimes unconsciously, hoping that holding on to the pain will somehow protect us from being hurt again. But the truth is, holding on doesn't protect us, it traps us. Forgiveness is not about pretending the hurt didn't happen. It is about freeing ourselves from becoming prisoners of that hurt. And this freedom begins when we move from blaming others to understanding the deeper layers of the situation. Blame feels natural. When someone hurts us, we want to point a finger, assign responsibility, and declare fault. Blame gives us a temporary sense of control, a sense that we are right and the other person is wrong. But blame also keeps us stuck. It ties our healing to someone else's behavior. As long as we blame, we wait for the other person to change before we can feel better. But forgiveness is not about them becoming better. It is about us becoming lighter. Awareness changes everything because it expands our vision. It allows us to see not just what happened, but why it happened. When we look deeper, we realize that people often act from their own pain, fears, insecurities, and unresolved wounds. Hurt people, not because they want to, but because they don't know any other way. Awareness doesn't justify their behavior, but it helps us understand its origins. And when understanding enters, the intensity of our resentment slowly begins to soften. Forgiveness becomes possible when we realize that the person who hurt us is human too, flawed, shaped by circumstances, influenced by their past, and struggling with their own battles. This does not erase the impact of what they did, but it releases the emotional grip their actions have on our heart. When awareness grows, the wall of anger starts to crumble. Forgiveness is also about becoming aware of our own patterns. Sometimes we stay in harmful situations because we ignore red flags. Sometimes we allow repeated hurt because we fear setting boundaries. Sometimes we expect healing from people who are incapable of giving it. Awareness helps us see our role, not to blame ourselves, but to recognize how we can protect our peace better moving forward. When we stop saying, "They ruined my peace," and start saying, "I am responsible for protecting my peace," something shifts inside. Forgiveness transforms from a burden into a choice, one that we make for our own emotional freedom, not for the benefit of anyone else. Holding on to resentment creates a constant emotional drain. It affects our sleep, our thoughts, our relationships, our energy, and even our self-worth. But when we choose to forgive, Not suddenly, not perfectly, but gradually, we reclaim the parts of ourselves that were tied to the pain. Forgiveness is not a moment, it is a process. Sometimes it takes days, sometimes months, sometimes years. But every small step toward letting go brings a little more peace into our heart. Awareness teaches us that forgiveness does not require reconciliation. It does not require allowing people back into our lives. It does not require forgetting the lesson. It simply requires releasing the emotional poison we carry within. When blame ends, healing begins. When awareness expands, compassion grows. And when compassion enters the heart, forgiveness stops feeling like a sacrifice and starts feeling like self-care. Forgiveness, in its purest form, is the ultimate gift we give ourselves. A gift that frees us to rise above the past and walk into the future unburdened. Unbroken and at peace. You deserve compassion, patience, and kindness from yourself, yet for many people, this is the hardest form of love to practice. We are often incredibly generous with others, quick to forgive them, quick to understand them, quick to comfort them when they fall. But when it comes to ourselves, the standards suddenly change. We criticize ourselves for feeling tired, blame ourselves for making mistakes, rush ourselves through healing, and demand perfection from a heart that is simply trying to survive. But true healing begins when we finally allow ourselves the tenderness we so freely offer to the world around us. Most people grow up learning how to care for others, but no one teaches us how to care for ourselves. We internalize the belief that being kind to ourselves is selfish or unnecessary. So we keep pushing, suppressing, ignoring, and overworking until our inner world becomes exhausted. But the truth is simple. Without self-compassion, the heart becomes brittle. Without patience, the mind becomes overwhelmed. Without kindness, the soul becomes weary, and no one can heal in a state of inner war. Compassion towards yourself means recognizing that you are human, flawed, learning, and evolving. It means accepting that you too are allowed to make mistakes, feel overwhelmed, and take time to heal. It means speaking to yourself the way you would speak to someone you love. Imagine how gentle your words would be if a friend came to you with the same struggles you carry silently. Would you criticize them, hurry them, or shame them? Of course not. You would hold them with understanding. You would remind them of their strength. You would comfort them through their pain. This same tenderness is what you deserve from yourself. Patience with yourself is equally important. Healing is not a switch that turns on with one realization. It is not a straight path, nor a predictable timeline. Some days you will feel strong. Other days you may feel broken again. Some days you will move forward confidently, and other days you will want to retreat. This is normal. Healing unfolds layer by layer, emotion by emotion, season by season. When you become patient with your own process, you stop rushing your heart to be somewhere it is not ready to be. You understand that growth cannot be forced. It must be allowed. Kindness towards yourself means giving yourself permission to rest, to breathe, to step back when things become too heavy. It means honoring your needs rather than suppressing them. It means setting boundaries not out of anger, but out of self-respect. And most importantly, it means recognizing that your worth is not measured by your productivity, your perfection, or your past. You are worthy simply because you exist. When you begin to treat yourself with compassion, patience, and kindness, something magical happens. The inner critic becomes quieter, and the inner healer becomes stronger. You start to see the difference between your wounds and your identity. You stop punishing yourself for the things you had no control over. You stop repeating the unkind narratives that others may have projected onto you. Instead, you create a safe inner space, a soft place where you can fall and rise again. Self-compassion is not weakness, it is strength. It is the foundation that allows you to stand again after life has pushed you down. It protects your heart from unnecessary suffering and gives you the resilience to face challenges with clarity rather than shame. And when you finally allow yourself this gentle love, you begin to heal not through force, but through grace. Healing is a gradual process, not a linear journey. Ups and downs are natural. And understanding this truth saves us from unnecessary frustration. Many people believe that once they decide to heal, the path will be smooth, predictable, and progressive. They imagine that each day will feel a little better than the one before, as if healing is a staircase we climb evenly. But healing is not a staircase. It is a landscape with valleys and hills, sunshine and storms, progress and pauses. And the moment we accept this, we stop being harsh on ourselves and begin to walk our journey with patience and grace. There will be days when you feel strong, when you feel hopeful, when you feel like you are finally moving forward. On these days, you may feel proud, energetic, and aligned. But there will also be days when old wounds resurface, when memories feel heavy, when emotions feel confusing, and when you start questioning whether you are healing at all. These days are not proof of failure. They are part of the natural rhythm of emotional recovery. No one heals in a straight line. Everyone heals in waves. The human heart is layered. Even when one layer of pain is resolved, another may appear, not as a setback, but as an invitation to go deeper. Healing is like peeling an onion. Each layer removed allows you to reach the next. Some layers sting more than others, but each layer brings you closer to the core of freedom. This depth is not a punishment, it is a privilege. It means you are growing, you are understanding, you are evolving. We often judge ourselves when we have a difficult day. We think, I thought I was over this, or why am I feeling like this again? But these questions come from the expectation that healing should be linear. The truth is that certain memories or triggers can resurface unexpectedly. Sometimes they appear because you are ready to heal a deeper level of that wound, and other times because life is giving you a chance to respond differently than you did in the past. Your emotional growth shows not in the absence of difficult days, but in how you move through them. Whenever you feel like you are going backward, remind yourself, healing is not erased by a moment of pain. One emotional setback does not cancel months of progress. A single tear does not undo your strength. A moment of weakness does not define the entire journey. Progress is measured not by perfection, but by resilience. The fact that you are aware of your emotions, the fact that you notice your patterns, the fact that you want to heal, this itself is progress. Healing also requires rest. There will be times when your heart needs a pause, when your mind wants silence, when your emotions need space to settle. This doesn't mean you are not healing. It means your inner world is adjusting, reorganizing, and integrating. Growth often happens quietly in the background, even when you feel still on the surface. Celebrate the small victories. The days you get out of bed despite heaviness, the moments you choose peace instead of reaction, the boundaries you set, the times you listen to your emotions instead of ignoring them. These quiet acts of courage matter. They build a foundation for long-term healing. The more you embrace the non-linear nature of healing, the less pressure you put on yourself. You stop rushing. You stop comparing yourself to others. You stop expecting perfection. Instead, you learn to honor the journey. You learn to trust the timing. You learn to accept that healing is not about speed, but about sincerity. Every moment, whether full of light or filled with shadows, is part of the transformation. And every step, even the shaky ones, is guiding you toward a stronger, wiser, more peaceful version of yourself. Peace is not found outside. It is cultivated inside through presence and acceptance. Yet for most of us, the greatest portion of our life is spent searching for peace in the outer world through people, achievements, possessions, recognition, or perfect circumstances. We tell ourselves, I'll be peaceful when things settle, or I'll feel calm when this problem is solved, or I'll finally relax when life becomes easier. But life rarely moves according to our schedule. And the more we depend on the outer world to create inner peace, the more fragile our emotional well-being becomes. The outside world is constantly shifting. People change, relationships evolve, circumstances rise and fall, plans break, and expectations fail. If our peace is tied to these fluctuating conditions, then our inner world will always be at the mercy of something we cannot control. True peace cannot depend on something unstable. True peace is built within, gradually, intentionally, gently, until it becomes a steady flame that continues to burn even when the winds around us grow strong. Cultivating inner peace begins with presence. When we are fully present in the moment, we stop struggling with the weight of the past and the fear of the future. The mind often suffers more from memory and imagination than from reality. We replay scenes from yesterday, project worries into tomorrow, and forget that peace is available only in the now. Presence reconnects us to our breath, our senses, and our inner stillness. In that stillness, the noise of the world becomes softer and the voice of the heart becomes clearer. Presence also teaches us to observe our thoughts instead of being controlled by them. When we notice our thoughts without immediately reacting, we create a small gap, a quiet distance between our awareness and our mental activity. In that gap, peace enters. We begin to realize that we are not our fears, not our insecurities, not our assumptions, not our doubts. We are the sky. Our thoughts are just passing clouds. Some clouds are dark, some are bright, but none of them define the sky itself. Acceptance is another pillar of inner peace. Acceptance does not mean giving up or agreeing with pain. It means recognizing what is without unnecessary resistance. Much of our suffering comes from fighting reality, wishing things were different, replaying what should have happened, arguing with moments that have already passed. Acceptance releases this inner battle. It allows us to say, "This is what is happening, and I will face it with clarity instead of conflict." When we accept a situation, we don't lose power, we gain clarity. With clarity, we can respond more wisely, choose better actions, set healthier boundaries, and protect our mental well-being. Acceptance is not passive. It is empowering. It redirects our energy from resisting life to navigating it. Inner peace also comes from letting go of unnecessary expectations. We expect perfection from life, from people, from ourselves. These expectations create tension, and tension destroys peace. When we loosen our grip on how things should be, we become more open to how things actually are. And in that openness, we find a surprising sense of calm. Over time, cultivating presence and acceptance builds a quiet strength inside us. A strength that does not depend on circumstances. A strength that remains steady even when challenges arrive. A strength that allows the heart to stay centered in a world full of noise. This inner strength becomes our anchor, our refuge, our home. When peace grows from within, the world outside may still be chaotic, but the chaos no longer enters the core of our being. Life may still bring storms, but the storms no longer drown us. Challenges may come, but they no longer steal our inner stillness. Because we finally understand that peace is not something found. It is something created, protected, and lived from the inside out.